first episode of the Growth Code. I am your host, Nate Jomaa, and today our guest is Kris Rademacher with K2Konsulting LLC.
Hey. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited I get to be the first person.
I am excited that you accepted our invitation to be the first person because nobody knew what to expect.
I think that's how I live my whole life, is never knowing what to expect. So it's almost a perfect fit.
Pretty beautiful. Perfect match.
It is.
So Kris, tell us about your journey into K2K Consulting and what it is that you focus on. What does your business do and how did you get there?
Yeah, I love it. Well, I mean, it all came out of necessity, right? Just like you love to problem solve. So I became a broker for mortgages in 2020. And if anybody knows me, I don't love the word no. Like, refuse it. My parents used to tell it to me and I'd say why. I'd always ask why. And then I go solve the problem and come back and be like, you can't tell me no anymore. So it only makes sense that eventually I would do that in business. So I was working for a broker at the time, and he also didn't like the word no. And I just jumped into private money at that time. We all know we were making a killing during COVID. So it was kind of on the DL. I was doing it for friends or, like myself or, stuff like that. I wasn't really talking about it. But in 2023, I saw the huge shift in mortgages. I was doing a ton of non-QM, a ton in 2022. Right about August of 2023, I saw that, that had kind of come down, or starting to see a change in that with rates rising and, investors struggling to find the properties that worked. And one of my dear friends who has a fund said, well, it's time to put the foot, on the pedal and start K2K Consulting going more and more. And oh my gosh, I've been so blessed. I did 24 million in commercial loans last year, and I handed out 128K in referral fees to my loan officer friends and agents and people, and it's just been so blessed. So
that's awesome. So
thank you.
Talk to me about how the business structure is set up. You are working as a consultant, so you still broker transactions with commercial lenders, or are you lending your own money?
No, so not yet. Hopefully one day I'll be rich enough to lend my own. But right now I've just accumulated over the last 5 years a lot of money in various different ways in various different places across the world. So you would call me because you have a deal that you got to figure out how to get done. And I go to my resources and get it done. So I broker it just like I would a mortgage, but it's not as easy as you would think. So it's taken a long time to get a trusted list of money that I know will do things in a variety as well, so that, I always have different angles to get into things. Creative financing has always been one of my favorite things to do. So this just kind of fits into it. So
yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So commercial lending is what your primary focus is. Is there any ancillary things from that, or any other things from that?
Yeah, when I talk to people about commercial is like the top line. Like that's where we start, and then we fraction down from that. So in that could be, fix and flips. You can do DSCR products. You can do warehouses, and going from there. Then under that, you have the categories, which a lot of us hear the buzzwords like private money, hard money, SBA loans. I could go on for hours. It's such a cool field to be in. But that's kind of, so there, it's easier for me to tell you what I won't do. And I know this is horrible to say because I'm blessed every day with God, but I will not touch a church. They are really hard to do. Okay. They're based a lot on tithing, and if they have a steeple, one money will touch it, but the other won't. A lot of times they're sitting in residential areas, but they're zone commercials, so the comps aren't really great. And I will be honest, some of the nastiest people I've ever met to work with money-wise. There is no God in that lending, I will say that. So that's kind of something I've learned just now I really wanted to help people, but in that space, I've just decided to walk. So
yeah, I get it. I mean, I get it 100%. Like, I feel like God has richly blessed me in my business every day, but I definitely understand what you're saying. I've had I've had some fun experiences, we'll put it that way, with
I really didn't think it was. I was so excited. I was like, I'm going to do these loans for churches and fulfill myself. And instead I was like, heck to the no.
So even on the residential mortgage side, some of the more difficult, some of the more challenging transactions I've done have involved folks that are leaders in the church. And that's not to say that they're bad people, but it's just so difficult. And there's so many regulations and things that you don't think about that come in and just sort of complicate things.
100%. So that's really, I mean, other than that, it's got to literally make sense, just like in your world. I mean, it's got to make sense. The only cool thing about this side is sometimes you can really be creative on how to get there. I mean, there's not really a Fannie Mae telling me no, and so forth. Now, some follow the guidelines a little bit stricter than others. Some will have none. But that's the neat thing. I've really worked with a lot of great minds to help me even learn to restructure things differently. And it's been such a cool world to get into. So very blessed.
Yeah, and that leads me to one of the questions that I wanted to really understand a little bit more. Do you have rigid guidelines like we do on the residential mortgage side when you're doing with that? Or is it really more make a business case, and if it makes sense, there's a high probability that we're going to be able to get this financed?
I mean, it really depends on where it goes. So when you work in the hard money space, that tends to be a little bit more in the traditional sense than private money. Typically, private money is, could be a fund. It could be a lot of different things. Now, they will have their guidelines within their own. And there's things like usury laws and, everything else. Some states you can do hard money for primary loans. Sometimes you can't. Then how that works out. So, that's why I tell a lot of LOs, it's not as easy as you think it sounds. And, I'm so grateful that we had the DSCR product in our mortgage space because that kind of helped lead me more. But I caution LOs a lot of times that when you do that product, you're not really doing commercial lending. And you have to be careful of that because you don't want to mislead a client to think that it is that, or, the opportunity is the same. So.
Yeah. So there's a difference between commercial lending and business purpose lending, right? DSCR is what we classify as business purpose lending because for all intents and purposes, it's going to be an investment property, which is meant to generate income.
100%. Now, the difference is your loan, most of them will close in an LLC or doesn't need to. So that's a little different than my world. Everything closes in an LLC. And the other thing is whether it reports to credit. A true commercial product does not report to credit. Where in your space, you have a few that may not and most of them do. And they just took like that my world product and conventional and they made like this baby. And it is great because I think it's helped a lot of people, especially loan officers who are looking for loans to close. I'm sure you see the non-QM in more of a space ever now than it was before. But again, that's not a true commercial loan. So I always tell loan officers, you got to be careful about stating that when you're talking about it. So
definitely. Yeah, that is a good warning, a good note to take away, loan officers. You have to be cautious of how you're phrasing things because it's not accurate technically.
100%. Yeah. So. But no, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I've gotten to do some really cool stuff. I mean, I do as low as a closed, when did I close that? January. I'm like, what month are we in now? In January, I closed like 3 really small $60K fix and flips up in Pennsylvania to so far my largest deal is $12.6 million bridge. So
$12.6 million is one single transaction.
One transaction and with a side scoop of Bitcoin.
No kidding.
Yeah, that was the Bitcoin deal that I put on. The guy didn't have his money last minute for the table, so I had to get even more creative on that. And I weirdly have a guy who will lend on Bitcoin. So who knew?
Yeah. So did that have to also get coordinated with a certain settlement agent that was able to accept Bitcoin?
No, they did it in there. So that's the other thing too. Okay. It's a little bit different in this world. I do work with the title companies some, but I mean, it's really far different. A lot of times, I kind of turn in the loan and I don't always have to touch anything after that. So it's a little bit nice. I do stay and get updates and follow, but they have their own processors, usually their own underwriting. And, it's not like our word where we have to like sit and watch it 1,000%. They also kind of underwrite backwards, if that makes sense. I usually go get all the stack of stuff. The appraisal or the AVM report comes back in, or sometimes I don't even need that depending on the money. And then the underwriter reviews, signs off, and we close. So, we don't have that upfront underwriting, which is nice.
So it's a little different.
Yeah. So the sales cycle, I did a 5 unit in Maine in 5 days. So.
Well, that's a question I wanted to ask you about, is if a commercial loan has a much longer sales cycle. It's been my experience when I've tried to do commercial over the years that it does tend to be a longer sales cycle, and there's a lot more information that you need to collect. So are you saying that that's not always the case?
It's not. It depends on the deal. Another deal I'm working on right now is an $8 million capital raise for a property out of New Jersey. And that's, it took us a couple weeks just to put everybody together to talk, to figure out how we're all going to get paid, and so forth. And then making sure that it fits under the regulation guides and like doing all that fun stuff. And now we've kind of put that together. We'll sign the documents that everybody agrees to, and then they'll go get us some money. Closings in about another 5 to 6 weeks. So your cycle can be a lot longer. Sometimes it can be shorter. It really all depends on it. I've worked on a lot of crazy stuff. Somebody brought me a bunker. I've been brought a zoo. Let's see what some other weird things I've worked on.
Let's buy a zoo.
What?
I said, let's buy a zoo.
I know. Isn't that a movie with Matt Damon or something?
Yeah.
They're going to buy a zoo or whatever. Yeah, they already own the zoo. I have just started working today on a $19 million development out of Puerto Rico. I've been brought, it's such a cool space. I have money in Canada. I got a guy that is from the UK and lends there all day long on, actual property, no personal loans. We do have people I'm working on $1 million credit line for a luxury car owner dealership owner out of Utah. The sky is honestly the limit in this world, and it fits me perfectly because, again, I told you I never like to say no.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds like it, Kris. So What does your 2025 plan look like? Are you going to continue to expand out into far reaches of the States, or like you said, Puerto Rico, Canada, England? What is your plan?
So I have a couple of challenges I'll talk about, and I'll just say my flat goal. So my flat goal for this year is 50 million. I want to double what I gave out in referral fees. And that's been the coolest part, actually, Nate, in all of this, is that I can pay anybody. It's legal. So, I have a lot of loan officer friends who don't know how to, probably could figure it out if they wanted to, but why? Will send me stuff and I get it closed and they get to keep, their check, and everybody's made happy. So that's been really cool. So I want to double what I gave out last year, which is 128K. So like to be around 300K, if not more. And I want to do 50 million in volume. Challenges, which you don't really per se have on your side. Now, non-ethics can run on either side of the street, but there's no laws per se. This is a Wild West. So finding somebody I can trust enough to help me grow, and not run off with everything at the end of the day. That's been my trickiest spot. So I've been working on it, having chats with other people and, working on something with my attorney to figure out a way to, hold people kind of accountable, because, I have a lot up here and I don't want to give it out for free. No offense.
You shouldn't.
So that's really the biggest challenge, because I'm a beast anyway, so I'll keep working, but like you, we don't want to work 90 hours a day, every day, right? So that's the different side. Like on the mortgage side, with our licensing, you kind of already assume that person has a level of ethics, and that if they're coming to work for you, you can trust them, hopefully to a certain extent. There's not any on this side, per se. So.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
the things that we have to go through to get an NMLS, approval, license, sponsorship is,
you
for
do.
the most part, you can trust those people. Not to say that everybody's a saint,
Yeah.
but
And then the other challenge is money. I mean, I don't think people
yeah.
understand. I spend a lot of time making sure that the money is legit because
Mm.
I get a lot of calls where people gave out big checks to people who were never going to close the deal. And I could say that instantly just listening to the deal. So again, I'm not saying people don't go do it. I want everybody to grow and figure out a way and survive. But no, it's not just suddenly you're going to do this tomorrow and be nailing it. I mean, I'm working on this since 2020. So
Sure.
yeah.
So you've invested 4 or 5 years into getting this business really in a place where you think it's a wild success, and I agree. What advice would you give to somebody that wants to either join what it is that you do in a different place, not join
Yeah,
your
nor
company?
me. I mean, you never know.
Yeah. But what advice would you give to that person to get started? Obviously, you can't just jump in and expect to suddenly start making money. It takes time to learn what you're doing and to find the outlets to be able to do the work.
100%. So I think really time, because I will tell you, I put as much effort in this as I did doing mortgages. It's kind of like when we ever see like a realtor be like, I'm going to be a loan officer now. And we kind of like laugh, like you can be a master of nothing in the end if you're not careful,
Right.
if that makes sense. Because again, too, I have learned you should never mess up a mortgage. But on that side of the street, people are a little bit more forgivable. I've seen over the years, the odds are you can find them another house and get them through or whatnot. In the commercial world, you lose them big money. You need to be aware that you could be sued. I mean, because you didn't do it. So I really think like sit down, find out. My talks with most are like, how much time do you really have to give to this? Because I go to conferences, I'm mingling all the time. When I say I've spent hours, I will never forget. I had this one client. I couldn't find the debt. It was ugly. Nobody liked it. He didn't really have any money. But he found it somewhere. And by the way, you can find something almost anywhere. What it looks like, might not be the best. And he brought me his term sheet. Well, first off, the term sheet had spelling mistakes in it. That's like kind of one to me. Then like the address just seemed kind of weird. So like I Googled that and it was like strange. Like there was a building, but I couldn't really find the number. And then I went down the line to look up these numbers. Like he claimed to be NMLS, which were not true. I couldn't find it anywhere. And then I even went as far enough to figure out where the dude lived, the money lived. And I sent him a picture and it was a not amazing condo house or apartment thing in New Jersey that looked to be in a not wonderful neighborhood. And I'm like, and I told my client, I was like, you do what you want to do, but this guy's going to lend you like all this money. And this is where, let's be honest, so just keeping note of that, like do it, but put in the effort. And if not, call somebody like me. It doesn't have to be me. There's a lot of Kris Rademachers out there, but call somebody like me and work with me. Let's keep your people happy. Let's keep money coming over to you and you not have to take as big of a risk. So
yeah.
Time. Just know you're spending a lot of time and think of how much you craft to get where your business is now. If you're going to try to pick this up to do half, then I wouldn't waste your time because you will get snagged somewhere eventually.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So anybody that has the mindset that is really keyed in tune with the stuff that Kris is talking about, this is an opportunity for you to maybe jump into this, but also heed her warnings about what you need to look for and the best way to approach it. It's not something that everybody's going to be able to do successfully. It's not something that everybody's going to find interest in doing when you really learn what it takes to do it. But if you have any questions about it, I'm sure Kris would be happy to point you to some resources, maybe other podcasts or places where she also gets inspiration and gets information.
And start small. To go out and try to close X, Y, and Z on your first hit, not saying you can't, but the odds of that and doing something successful or whatnot, work your way up. I wasn't doing $12.6 million deals in 2000. I was, finding maybe like a little fix and flip money here or doing a small bridge for somebody,
Right.
you gotta earn your way. And then that's kind of the weird thing, as you do and your name gets out there, then the bigger projects. And like I said, now I have some huge projects. Another one is a 60 million out in Utah. Like those, now I've met the right people to help me kind of do these deals. And I know I can trust that. And even I know now when hearing somebody call, like what that deal is going to look like possibly, or if it's even possible, because it's very exciting. I get these all the time. Kris, I have a blah, blah, blah loan for this amount. It's very exciting when you get that call, but is that going to be really a loan at the end? Odds are very probably small. It's not. Like the percentage of those deals that make it through, like fit through here. Most of the time they've been shopped everywhere. They, have bad credit. They're in, at the end and they're not in a good spot. So, just really do your due diligence and start slow, just like you would in mortgages,
Great advice. Great advice.
Thank you.
One other thing I wanted to dive into a little bit. I get asked sometimes as a mortgage broker, do we do SBA loans? I know that that's something that you have experience in doing. Can you just give us a quick overview of what that looks like in terms of getting an SBA loan and who the ideal candidates are to apply for SBA loans?
Yeah, SBA is great in a lot of ways. If the loan has time to close. They go anywhere, truthfully, from 60 to 90 days. They're not a very fast loan. It's backed by the government. We all know how that is. Yeah. It's great you have to have 51% ownership in it. So if you are looking to do the business yourself, and you have some money, but not a lot, because you'll normally hear you're probably putting maybe 10 to 15% in, depending on the deal. You can do construction. You can do a lot of great stuff. Where SBA, I think, has some of the things I don't love is the interest rates tend to be high and variable. They can be anywhere from 1+ on prime. And they have large PPPs. So you can either have anywhere from 3 to 10 years. So that's not always the best if you know that you're going to stabilize in 2. And so there's a lot more to it. But again, it's a great loan. If you that's the only way you can do it. I think of them very similar to like our down payment loans. Like if that's how you get into the home and that is going to propel your future to better and you have a really good plan, then take the money. It's not a figure it out kind of later loan. There are a lot of hoops to jump through with SBA, but they've done a lot of great, and they're great for a lot of businesses where you may not have a lot of experience, but let's say you're going to buy out a wedding venue and the person's agreed to stay on for 6 months to a year to help you, get through it. Great area for that, because you can get in with very little. You have an amazing business plan backed by the current owner. The government loves stuff like that. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. Not alone if you have the cash and you're just trying to be cheap. And I hate to say it, because the hoops don't really make it worth. And it is a full doc scrutinized loan, by the way. So most of my clients that come to me, I do have bank options in Florida all day long and some other states, but most of my clients are coming to me because they want the least amount of docs in. Their credit is not impeccable right now because they just did a fix and flip and used all their cash flow to get into it in credit cards. Those are the clients I tend to help the most, or fast. They need speed. So, because you pay to play.
Yeah. So if I'm somebody that wants to learn more about K2K Consulting, what's the best way for us to get in touch with you and find you online?
So Business Plan 2025, making a website. I have my K2K mortgage one, but the best way is to text me at 757-450-0052. I'm always around. And I think for most of these deals, you can go to my website. It's just going to end up being something basic to give you an idea. But these deals, we have to talk about them. I got to hear who you are, because some of my money is based on clientele. They will maybe not be the best project, but if they like you, they'll help you figure it out. So be a little humble when you call, please. It helps get your deals through, because if my money doesn't like you a lot of times, they just won't want to work with you. And It's just flat out that. So, but yeah, so I'm everywhere.
Yes, I love it. And we'll make sure we put that in the show notes as well. If anybody's interested in reaching out to Kris, she'll have a, excuse me,
You're good.
She'll have a email address and we'll pop her phone number in there.
So not the perfect business owner. You don't have to be one, right, Nate? You just got to get out there and start. And I not a lot of people like the fake it till you make it, but I think there's a lot behind that because what do they say? If you wait to be the perfect prepared, you'll never start.
Never, exactly.
Yeah.
Get started now.
Love it.
Kris is a prime example of not necessarily having all of the things people typically wait around to get started.
Yeah, none of them. I just don't like the word no.
Yeah.
That's even my motto. No is a yes. I haven't found the money for yet. So
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being our first guest on the Growth Code.
I wish I knew how to make confetti fall.
Have to look into that. We're a low budget show, so we'll have to figure that out.
I mean, like fake confetti on the picture. I wouldn't want to clean up the real confetti.
Right. Maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe I need to ship confetti, and then I'll go, okay, press the button, and you hit it.
Oh my God, I would have done that for you being the first one. I would have totally done that for you. So
awesome.
Love it.
Well, thanks again for joining us. We appreciate all of the information you shared with us here on the Growth Code today. And anybody that wants to get in touch with Kris, again, check out the show notes. We will be able to get you that information.
Yay. Thank you for having me. I love it.